I would like to welcome everyone back to a new episode of the Our View podcast, where we aim to educate, raise awareness, and change the tone of conversation about disabilities. I am joined today by my guest, Daniel Gospodarek, and thank you for joining me for this great conversation that I'm looking forward to having with you.
Yeah, it's so great to be here, Arthur. I'm excited for this too.
Yes. So we're recording this on January 15th, and we were both sharing our current weather situations where we are located in the United
Mhm.
States. And I, you know, uh, started very early to almost complain about the weather that we were having here in New Jersey because it was 29 degrees and almost snowing. And you told me that you were in Denver. So, yes, I apologize for
Good.
for complaining about what we are going through. But
Today it fluctuated between -4 and 4, but we
yeah,
are we are all warm and cozy. So,
that's great. So, can you share with us a little bit about yourself and who you are and what you do, and share something that you'd like to do for fun there in
mm,
Denver.
yeah, for sure. So, my name obviously is Daniel. I'm a licensed clinical social worker here in Denver, Colorado, and right now I operate a private practice called Revitalize Mental Health, and then I'm also working full time in a psychiatric hospital. And one of the large pieces that kind of directed me into this realm was a traumatic brain injury from an auto accident in July of 2009. And then so that's my little intro, and then something I like to do is just to be outdoors. I know that sounds pretty cliche for being like a mountain area, but I think there's a lot of truth in that, and that's one of the ways that I re-regulate and kind of fill up that bucket to keep doing what I need to do. So,
I totally can agree with the outdoors part. I enjoy being outdoors where I'm in New Jersey, so we have the beach that is not too far.
mm,
So I love going to the beach in all kinds of weather, surprisingly. Even in the wintertime, there's just something about the fresh salt air from the ocean that
mhm.
hits your face and just gets into your lungs. So I'm sure you have similar experiences with the mountain air there, and
Yeah,
just the freshness of the air and being outside is definitely revitalizing for sure.
definitely nice tying the name in there.
Yes, yes. So, when you were introducing yourself, you mentioned that you experienced a traumatic brain injury. Can you
Yeah,
share a little bit more about that injury and how it impacts your daily life, and also how it helped lead you to your current profession of being a licensed clinical social worker?
for sure. So also if you have questions that pop up during any of this, just
Yes,
chime in.
great.
So as mentioned, car accident 2009. So that was going into my senior year of high school. And um yeah, so the car accident is one part of it. We rolled 4 times, right? And then they got me to the hospital and they figured out that I need to have brain surgery to stop the bleeding. So they did what's called a craniotomy, opened up the skull, took care of what they needed to, and then that recovery portion set in, which the doctors don't know a lot about yet. I mean, they know a lot, I should say that. But TBIs are so unique and specific to every individual that it's hard for people to predict on what recovery will look like, how long it'll take, or the challenges that may come up, or if even any challenges will show up. So that's the part where it gets kind of gray. So fast forward 10 days ICU, 7 days inpatient rehab. Then I did 3 months of physical therapy, 2 to 3 times a week, and then I did 17 months of speech therapy to not so much for the speech, but more so for the ability to concentrate and give attention, and then also switch between tasks without having issues. Some of the word finding and things like that was also tied into the speech therapy process, but kind of in a nutshell, right, from a 30,000 foot perspective of what I went through. But then there's a lot of, the smaller pieces of how do you get through something like that, and it comes down to obviously the care of the medical staff, but also your support network. And in terms of TBIs, sometimes that support network also takes a lot of beating and verbal beating because of the challenges with around anger, irritability, rage. And that's something that I even went through. And they're the closest people to you, but they're also sometimes the closest targets. And that can create a lot of guilt and shame that then um, can just add layers and layers onto stuff. But then the identity losses around the TBI, what you could do beforehand, what you can't do now, or maybe isn't recommended by medical advice to do. I guess you could do a lot of things. Nobody's going to stop you, but there's also balance, right, of risk. So, hanging out with friends late at night or not. And then this fatigue level that's the fatigue that's associated with TBIs was fairly significant in my recovery, sleeping probably 10 to 14, 16 hours a day, depending the first 6 to 9 months, and then having to adjust my senior year schedule, my school schedule, right? And all these different dynamics, which make it challenging for me. I could say, hey, I can only do 2 classes a day, but for somebody that still needs to work a full-time job to provide, like it's a heavy lift. And so those are some of the more granular kind of pieces that come up with TBIs that are challenging. And then I think the second part, Arthur, was how did it lead me to social work?
Yes.
So being in around all these medical professionals, I knew I was going to land somewhere in there. I just didn't know where. And before the TBI, I didn't know where I was going to go, business or the military, right? Didn't know. And then after, I was like, okay, somewhere in the healthcare profession. And it didn't really come down to one, a volunteering opportunity that I had, and then two, a conversation with my sister, who is also a social worker.
Okay.
And then kind of helped me looked at the curriculum and say, like, look at everywhere you can go. So I have my bachelor's in social work as well as my master's in social work. After my bachelor's, I was like, well, I can't really do what I want to do yet, in terms of like individual work, group work, or family work. So then I went and got my master's here in Denver, and yeah, just been pushing the limits ever since in terms of how do you also provide services in or to a population, especially those who have TBIs and or mental health challenges that cannot always pay a lot of therapists. And
Mhm.
I even have a lot of private pay in my practice. But then also, like, how do you keep a few of those spots open for sliding scale or pro bono work? Just because that outreach is so crucial, and there not everyone can afford just to pay straight every session. So how do you amend that, make it accessible for everyone?
Yeah, I thank you for sharing your story of how you acquired the TBI and your journey through the recovery. And um I always I've had my disability all my life. It's all that I've known. So um I'm happy that you mentioned the change in your, identity of what you could do before and after, and how that does impact someone's life, and not just your life, but the people around you, your friends and family that are in your life. It impacts everybody.
Mhm.
And for me, I recorded another episode earlier today, and I shared this with that person as well. I majored in psychology in college, because of what I went through living with a disability, and how I realized, by the time I got to college, how much having some type of therapy and counseling could have helped me and again the people around me, my family, my
Mm-hmm.
parents, and being a married couple with a child that requires a lot of extra care. I had a lot of surgeries growing up as a child, and again, they had to work full-time jobs and support because I have an older sister, and they had a
Mm-hmm.
home that they had to take care of and everything. So um, although we never saw the stress, I'm sure it was very stressful. Um, adding with, just raising a family in general, but then having the extra layer of having a child with a disability that has some extra things that need to be taken care of and doctor's appointments and things like that.
Right.
So
Time off
I,
work, all
yeah,
those pieces, right?
exactly. Yeah, and having, a boss that was understanding that you had to take off from work, or, oh, my son's having another surgery again, and we
Yeah.
need to be there for the first couple of days. So that's was my plan to major in psychology so that I could help um, other families impacted by disabilities, and just help them work through some of the challenges and
Mm-hmm.
things that would arise because of the disability diagnosis impacting their family.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so thank you so much for sharing that. I know that sometimes it's, can be uneasy and difficult for people to share their stories. So I always appreciate when
Yeah.
someone
I
is
mean,
open.
yeah, for sure. I think,
Yeah.
and I mean, it takes, I mean, it's, years.
Mhm,
Obviously, I still have a TBI, and, I don't have, there are challenges that arise when don't get enough sleep at night.
mhm,
Time I notice some of my cognitive pieces of word finding or the fatigue starting to drift in, as anyone would be tired if they're not sleeping appropriately at
right.
night. But um I think talking about like those identity shifts, right? And the grief and loss that can be associated with that is something that doesn't always get a lot of attention, right? So for me, going from, summer, that's so the accident actually happened on like a day, like we like went to a friend's house, we were at a pool, like just eating cherries off the tree, hanging out, and then we were driving home. Like it was like a chill summer day, right?
Mhm,
And then your world is flipped upside down, and it's so strange because then like the doctors are like, you're probably not going to graduate high school with your cohort that you started with,
mm,
right? And then it's like, am I going to lose part of me from that, right?
right.
Or just that level of shit, or the shifts in independence from, obviously, so before the accident I could shower, I could bathe, right, all those
Mhm,
things independently, and then also being like a 17-year-old, and I think I I turned 18 right when I got home from the hospital. So I was still 17. But then being a 17-year-old that needed a nurse to like hold them when they took a shower, or like
mhm,
help them stand with like a gait belt, right? Like
right,
that is, two different ends of the spectrum of independence, and it happens rapidly, right?
right.
and
Mhm,
and it happens in many, it could be other TBIs, but it can also be other illnesses, right, like MS or Alzheimer's or whatever else that might show up. So
right.
um but that's a lot to process through,
Mhm,
and we can really internally just kind of self implode if we don't find avenues to get some of these things out.
right. Yeah, that's so true, and, like you said, that it's the immediate change that took place, as where the one day you could do things, and then the next day and the weeks to come you realize that you couldn't do certain
Mhm.
things. But it I can appreciate what you said, like through your journey of recovery and all of the challenges that that came up, and the even the I forget how you described it, but the lashing out at the people that were
Yeah.
closest to you, and it's like, yeah, they're your support system, but they're also the ones that are that can take
Yeah, those are
the
the closest
brunt.
targets, right?
Yeah, yeah, the closest targets, yeah, taking the brunt of your frustrations, and
Mhm.
using all of that though to um to want to be a social worker. And, after you
Mhm.
said talking to your sister and, just realizing, that that is what you wanted to do. And as a licensed social worker, you currently support and empower others who have TBIs. Can you talk a bit about that? Because
Yeah.
I think that's really empowering,
Mhm.
for you to go into that field of work.
Mhm. So that is, yeah. I mean, I work with folks that have TBIs. I also sometimes TBIs will create just from the injury itself or mental health challenges will fall out from that, right? So,
Mhm,
and I'm also treating that mental health portion. But a lot of what we look at in terms of social work are like using systems perspectives. And, I was able to earn, 100K and support my family the previous year. And now I'm part-time and I'm not carrying any benefits. And now I'm down to 40, right? And then what pieces come with that, right? Like whatever that is. So we look at just in terms of how I look at a person who comes to therapy is like what areas, what domains of somebody's life are they really struggling with? And how do we kind of create maybe some just awareness, acceptance, also challenge, right? As a therapist, I'm here to support, but I'm also here to challenge you. Let's
mhm,
see, like how far can you grow here, right? Like where is this growth? And sometimes that growth is maybe reprocessing trauma around the TBI, how the TBI was acquired, um, and or just other dysfunctional thoughts or memories or sensations that show up around that experience. And then some of it is also just being a witness and holding hope to say like I'm right here. This
mhm,
happened 6 weeks ago, 12 weeks ago, and I'm still working through recovery, right? And then it's like, okay, like what are you noticing are those shifts, right? Well, I'm
mhm.
able to like talk for 10 minutes instead of 4 minutes now, right? Because I don't think they're very minuscule changes on some level, but they're huge for people who
Yes,
once had that ability and lost it. Now they're working to get it back, right? So for
right.
me, it was really hard for me to talk because the breathing tubes that they had to put down my throat,
Mhm,
right? So then like I could only like whisper, and then it was like short sentences, right? And then it's longer and longer and longer. So like, and everyone's different. Some people will have a TBI and not even need breathing tubes, right?
right.
Some people will need more, right? But
Mhm,
so just noticing those incremental changes can also keep that hope, keep that internal flame alive to keep pushing recovery forward, right? Because recovery is not going to just happen in a passive, osmosis. Like there's that old kind of thing of like, oh, just sleep underneath your textbook at night before the exam, right? Like, I mean, it doesn't work, obviously, but recovery will not work like that either.
right.
You have to be very intentional. You have to be aware. And there's a lot of sacrifice that comes through in terms of recovery, right? Like
Mhm,
what can you do? What can't you do? What are you choosing not to do to support recovery, right? And this isn't just TBI. This is also, thinking if somebody is trying to maintain sobriety, right? Or
right.
whatever it is, right? Or even staying out late and going to a party in terms of like depression symptoms or anxiety, right? Or trauma. So all these pieces have a lot of overlap.
Yeah, and I think it's important to mention as well that, that the recovery looks different for every individual.
Hmm.
And like you said, with where you needed the breathing tube, someone else may not.
Right.
Um, so it's important, and whatever the journey it is that people are on to, focus on their journey. And
Hmm.
like you said, celebrating and being excited about those new things that you're able to achieve. And for you, like you said, you started at a whisper. And it was like
Hmm.
that's an achievement that, something that you couldn't do probably, weeks before
Yeah.
that. So,
Right.
um, that's really, really important to mention to stay,
Hmm.
to stay focused on your one specific journey and, and your recovery. And it's really, I just think it's really great that you have used an experience that happened to you to, to turn that around and to reach out and to be helping other people through the work that you do as a social worker. That's really, really cool.
It sounds like you're doing the same too.
Yes, it's really it's very uh life-giving. Like it really does give me it encourages and empowers me with
To
the
keep
work that
going.
the work that I do because I know that I'm making a difference in my
Yeah.
own little space in the world.
Yep.
I know that I am reaching people and making a difference and helping to just change the way that people with disabilities are viewed and thought about and treated in the world. So I think I think you're definitely there and doing the same thing. So thank you for the work that you do
Mhm.
and for sharing this conversation with me. And before I wrap up, I would like to just ask one other random question that
Go
I
for it.
found somewhere and thought I would ask. And so it is, besides the occupation that you currently have,
Okay.
what is another occupation that you would like to try or would do if you ever leave the social work field?
This is a good question. I think it would be somewhere in the realm of personal trainer. I
Oh,
really
great.
value it in therapy, like holistic, right? We got to look at all the domains of a person's life,
Mhm,
but I really enjoy that kind of environment where you can challenge someone
mhm.
and support them, right?
Yes,
In this growth process. But yeah, I would probably be a personal trainer.
that's cool. That is really, really great. I when you said that, I immediately thought of someone who I went to a gym one time just to check it out. That was my plan, to just go and look. A few friends had joined and they said, "Oh, they have an indoor pool. You would really like it and, go check it out." So I went and I was doing a tour. I don't know where he came from, but this personal trainer who works there, he came over and he said, "Hi." He told me his name. "Nice to meet you. Can't wait to work with you." I said, "Wait, what?" "I can't wait to work with you." Now, and I was in my wheelchair at the time. So
Yeah.
for me, for somebody to approach me and say that, I was like, just take all my money. Where do I sign up? Because, because, because I've been so used to signing up for gym memberships and a personal trainer saying, "Oh, we'll have to meet next week. I have to think of something that I can have you do."
Right.
Or, "Oh, I'm not sure what to do. So, we have to
Mhm.
talk first and then we'll have another session where I can actually give you some things to do." So, for
Yeah.
this guy who never saw me a day in his life, he just
Hmm.
walked up to me and said, "Oh, I can't wait to work with you." Yeah, I can't wait to work with you either. And I was like, "Wait, what did I just commit to?"
Right.
What just
Who is this
happened?
person?
Right. What just happened? And but it was so important for me,
Hmm.
for him to say that because as a person with a disability with limited mobility, I don't move as much as I should or as much as other people do, and I know I can't compare myself to other people. Um, but it's difficult to try to find activities for me to stay active.
Hmm.
And again, with a disability, it's difficult to eat properly sometimes. And,
Hmm.
because my digestive system is all out of whack. So I can't drink as much water as is recommended because that messes up my digestive system a little bit.
Right.
So so again, to have someone say out of nowhere, doesn't know my condition, doesn't know what disability I have, but "I can't wait to
Hmm.
work with you." I was like, "Okay, yeah, me too. Great."
Hmm. Sure.
So it's really it's cool that you said that. And even though I'm sure your physical therapy, I remember being in physical therapy myself, it can, oh gosh, it could be the worst days, and you see the
I
therapist walk
know.
in and you're like, "Oh gosh, they're here
Yeah.
again."
It's like,
So
can't you be sick?
right. Right. Do you take a day off?
Yes, I know.
So it's really so it's really cool that you said that you would do that. And I thought about that question for myself
Mhm.
also, and completely opposite of what I do. I always wanted to be a veterinarian.
There you go.
Yes, so I would like to try it for, a day or so.
Mhm.
I don't know if I would stick with it, probably not, but, um, and I know a real life veterinarian, one of my best friends is a veterinarian, and, the things that she does are really, impressive, and I could not, do that full time or anything, but that would be what I would choose for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And before we do close out the conversation, can you just share with us if there are any websites that you have or any social media sites that people can follow you on?
Yeah, so the business name again is Revitalize Mental Health for the private practice, and then um, revitalizementalhealth.com is the website.
Mhm.
So pretty similar. And then we do have a Facebook page as well as an Instagram that's revitalize underscore mental health, or at revitalize underscore mental health. And then it's the same one of her TikTok as well.
Great. So, Daniel, thank you so much for this conversation. I appreciate you taking the time to share your story and about the work that you do as a social worker and how you are helping others and on their journey to recovering and just the work that you do in general as a social worker is really important. So I appreciate this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity, Arthur. It was good to meet you.
Yes, great to meet you as well. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Our View podcast. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts to let us know what you thought of the episode. Follow us on all social media platforms at Our View for Life. That's OURVIEW, the number 4, LIFE. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are back with new episodes on the 15th and 30th of every month. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest for an upcoming episode, you can email us at ourviewforlife@gmail.com.